Are you tired of the cookie-cutter approach to education that's stuck in the last century? Are you seeking a win-win situation where your family thrives, your kid's education is revolutionary, and you still get to chase your own dreams? Welcome to Unschooled Unleashed. Unlock your child's genius. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, an unapologetic rebel dad and promoter of what many consider to be educational anarchy. You know the world isn't going to be won by those that just toe the line. It's the innovators, the visionaries, and the resilient spirits that are going to thrive. Our mission here is to forge those world changers within our very homes with less stress, energy, and time. Unschooled Unleashed starts now. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Unschooled Unleashed. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, and today we're going to talk about unschooling, just in general. But it's targeted for parents who don't want to have to wait for permission to lead. So if you're considering unschooling but caught in the hesitation loop, I'm going to dismantle the myths and map out the mindset that you're going to need to raise independent and future-ready kids without compromise. So if that sounds interesting to you, then stay tuned and let's dive in. Today, I want to talk to those parents who are maybe on the fence with unschooling. They're already considering home education. They're already considering pulling their kids out of school and doing something different, but they're not really doing it yet. And I want to pull them into active leadership. I want you to really think about this. I want to remove the need for validation from others, because who's more important, the need for validation from others or your children? I want you to align your identity with strategy. We're in it for the long game and we're in it for the big wins, and we don't care what other people say. Now I want you to clarify what your home education journey looks like so you can build your own educational empire within your very home. And I don't think it's as hard as people like to think it is. So let's talk about that. So unschooling, what is it? Well, it's not a hack. It's a philosophy for leaders is the way I like to look at it, because I lead my unschooling journey with my children. This isn't about doing less. It's about doing what actually matters. We're going to focus that energy on things that are impactful in the child's life, and you're going to help them find those things. You're not abandoning education. Instead, you're seizing control of it, and you're going over and allowing them to discover their self. We're going to follow their interests, or they're going to follow their interest, and they're going to choose what they want to learn. Your job is to provide resources, exposure, leadership along the way to try and help them along that journey. We don't want kids to hate school. We want them to be completely engaged in learning. We want them to be leaders, because I think everyone needs to be a leader in some form. And we're not going to fall for the pressure to be like everyone else. We're going to allow our children to self-differentiate, to truly be their self, not conformity. Schools are all about conformity. We don't want conformity. We want to find their unique skill sets, their unique gifts, and help them thrive in that. Moving on, learning. It's a system. And I think it's a science. I really do. Most schools just run this system badly. That's the problem. Only about 2 to 3 hours of actual learning happens within a school day, and that's at 180 days a year in the United States. I don't think kids need more worksheets. They're always trying to expand the school year. I think kids need real-world engagement to see that they're learning something that's actually valuable. How many times did you say in school, why do I need to learn this? You're learning the quadratic equation, you're learning who knows what else, and you're saying, what on earth is every single kid learning this for? When am I ever going to use this? I think that's a very valid argument. I'm not saying that it's bad to learn that stuff. It's if you're not engaged in math at a higher level, why are we forcing our kids to do that? Now, arguably, I like the exercise. I like the thought of exposing my kids to more complex math so that way they understand the world a little bit better. I'm a big math guy. But at the expense of hating math, Hating learning? No, I don't want to do that. If they need to learn the quadratic equation, I think that lesson will come at some point in their life if they need to learn it. I, for one, have never had to learn it. Like, my life has never said I need to learn it, with the exception of being in the artificial environment of school. So when I talk about learning as a system, what am I really referring to? Well, let's use an example. So if your child loves cooking, you allow your child to cook dinner. Maybe it's just a small part of it, but you allow them to cook on a regular basis. You make it a part of the routine. That way they get more exposure, and then they might even make more dinners. They might even make the whole dinner. You might even get some help if you're making dinner all the time. And I think that would be a really good example of how to systematize learning, and especially the practical aspects of it. And I just want to contrast that with how school does it. School sends worksheets home with hypothetical examples that are never really, it's not real life at all. It's just a hypothetical example on a worksheet, and that's it. The children aren't necessarily engaged. It's hard to connect the dots, and when kids are younger, I really do believe you need to firmly connect the dots in order for them to grasp what they're doing. So practicing and actually doing something is a higher level of learning than just sitting in a didactic class hearing someone talk about it. Excuse me. Moving on. Another thing I hear a lot from parents is your job, I'm not a teacher, right? I just don't, I'm not an expert. I'm not a teacher. I don't know what it is. We'll focus on the teaching. Your job isn't to teach. It's to architect the environment. That's what your job is. Your job is to provide exposure, tools, mentorship, space, eliminate busy work, build systems that allow your child to thrive. Okay? So if you're able to get them, for example, you want them to code. Well, you go over and get them set up on a computer and have them start jumping in and playing with code. Start having them watch YouTubes on it. Get them a book. Different ways that they can engage with it. Maybe start them out on an app that actually teaches coding from the basics. Or maybe you guys sit down together and just play around with it. Sometimes it's fun for us parents to get involved like that. But your job is not to teach. It's to create the environment conducive for learning and provide those resources to be able to do it. And again, that might be mentorship. That might be, other people. And that's totally fine. But you're going to help your kid evolve in that way. Learn. Moving on. So what is the real risk? The real risk, when people think about unschooling, they go, oh my gosh, that's so wild. They think it's just full of risk. To me, you're going to hear stories about, my kid's 8 years old, still hasn't learned to read. And it's like, yeah, kids work on different different clocks, different speeds. Maybe there was a bad experience with learning, maybe they're pushing it off. But if you allow them the space to process it and work through it, and then show them the value and provide the resources and not make it overwhelming nor pressured, kids want to learn. And reading is one of those things that just expands their universe, right? They're going to want to do that. Math is one of those things as well. They're going to want to do that as long as you're not pressuring them and you make it fun and engaging. Make it problem solving, curiosity based. You're learning with them. That's the way to do it. It's not the way we've traditionally done it, which is force a kid, right? Letting the system raise children for you, I think, is the greatest danger. So we have, on one hand, my kid learns to read at 9. And on the other hand, my kid never learns how to read because they hated school so much and learning. Because the system, I delegated it to the system, didn't pay attention, and my child fell behind. And here I stood by, pointing my fingers at the system. You let the system do this to your child. I hate to say it. They mold your children. And oftentimes it's molded into mediocrity. And I'm not for mediocrity. I want every person is gifted, I believe. Every person has a purpose. Finding that, I think, is one of the highest callings. And allowing my child to start that as early as possible, I think, is a gift that I would have loved at that younger age, because I didn't have that at my when I was 9, 10, 11. Instead, it was about conformity, and a lot of things were delegated. Both my parents worked, and there wasn't much time. So that's just the way it was. But what ends up happening to many kids is they just conform to those around them, and they lower their standards because the standards aren't that high. Schools are not designed for innovation. They're built to conform. Everyone becomes more of the same. Everyone does the same things at the same times, does the same worksheets, does the same curriculum, does it at the same pace. Everything. It's not for innovation. It's not for creators. It's not for builders. It's for rule followers. It's training your child to just be told what to do, not be a self-starter. And in the future, I don't think that's preparing them for success. I mention in almost every episode, the future workforce is majority entrepreneurial or freelance, according to the trends. The majority of the U.S. workforce will be freelance or entrepreneurs. You need self-motivation. You need to know what you're good at. You need to know what you're bad at. You need to know what motivates you, what you can't stand. Exploration and following your curiosity are the ways to do that, as opposed to conforming into something that everyone else says you should be. That's the opposite of what I want. Moving on, socialization. I think it isn't found in the classrooms. Although, there's a lot of friends in classrooms. It's more about volume. I don't think it's about quality, though. I think that schools are engineered life. It's a construct that is false. No other area of life besides school is segmented into age groups. I think mixed age environments actually help children socialize better, because they can learn how to level up. They can learn how to interact with peers that are just a little bit older than them. They can teach kids that are younger than them. Interacting with adults and socializing with adults help them become more adult-like, have real conversations, learn how to interact in the adult world. I mean, that's what we're training them for, right? Not that they need to be adults by any means. It's just when we're talking about socialization, we're talking about how to interact with others, not how to interact with those kids that are the exact same age as you. Nothing wrong with a whole bunch of kids about the same age. Usually their interests might align in some way. That's okay. But trying to force that and assuming everyone's the same because they are the same age, that they should be in the same curriculum, learning the same things, I just think I reject that. So what I do is we choose what we're plugging our children into. We choose the different sports. We did basketball this winter. We do baseballs in the summer normally. Community stuff. We're involved in like homeschool groups. We do travel events, different things online. We don't play the lottery of send them to the school and see what happens. We want them to be intentional with their relationships. There's great for exploration, great for meeting new kids, and that's all totally fine. But who do you call a friend? Is it just the person who doesn't treat you awfully in school? Because that was my experience. It's like, who doesn't pick on me? That's who's my friend. How sad. I had a really bad experience after 5th grade up. There's cliques, there's all this stuff. It isn't real socialization. It's all false. I know our kids build relationships with neighbors across all age ranges. They were involved in dance. Again, I said sports. All these different things are ways to have them socialize and grow. Moving on, you don't need to be the expert. You just need to lead like one. You're the leader of the house. You are setting the direction. Okay, now the kid gets to pick in unschooling what they want to learn about. It's child-led, interest-based. But you're the one pointing to different things, saying, hey, this is helpful. Look how this is helpful. You're not doing it in a nagging way, okay? You're doing it in a way that hopefully lets them see the bigger picture of where this is going. Hey, if you learn how to read, it's going to open up your world. Isn't this kind of cool? Like, you're not trying to make them feel guilty, all that stuff. You just know where they need to go. You're going to lead your kid. I reject the philosophy of allowing kids just to do whatever they want, okay? Now, it is do whatever they want, but I might put restrictions on what they're doing. I don't believe in radical unschooling. I see the point of it, and I want to subscribe to it because it sounds more pure of unschooling, but I just don't think there's enough personal responsibility as the leader, as the parent of your child's education. And I think every child needs someone to kind of grab them and point them in the right direction. We don't want them to go in and I'm just going to use an analogy, put them in a boat and just push them off into the lake and see where they end up. We want to provide a direction. We want them to row in a certain path. We want to coach them on it. We want them to tell them how the way the world works and where to invest out of the things that they might be interested in during that time. We also want to try and get them interested in certain things that we know are going to be valuable. We need to lead them. You can outsource some of this too. So don't think you have to do it all alone. And you're not a pro at this, some of this stuff, right? You might not be a pro at math, and maybe that's your weak point, and you don't need math to do whatever you do, your job, and function in life, and at least not a lot of math. Well, find someone else that does it. There's plenty of online programs, online tutoring that they can get engaged with, apps that I've mentioned in previous episodes that really help with that. There are plenty of ways to outsource a lot of this. You can outsource writing. You can outsource learning a language. You can outsource a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm not saying you should back off completely. You should still be engaged. You're learning. You can learn with them. You facilitate things, but you lead that house. Position yourself as the general, not the grunt doing all the work. Okay? And that's what I try and do when I get my kid involved with different technologies and different groups. And we even lead other kids. We get involved in a homeschool co-op, and we teach kids of all ages. And it's a lot of fun. And a lot of people teach my kids, and they get exposed to different things. So pretty cool. Moving on. Stop measuring your kids against broken metrics. So when someone says, oh, you're behind, ask yourself, behind who? Grade level is not real life. It's an artificial sorting mechanism that they've made up just to tell you whether you're ahead or you're behind. It's a benchmark that some administrator somewhere went over and said, this should happen at this time. Some of it's science-based, where we say, yeah, kids should be able to learn by this age, or read by this age. They should be able to do this complex math by this age. That's all good, but that doesn't mean my child is interested in it, nor ready for it. Some kids are ahead in certain areas, and some are behind. In fact, all kids are like that. So why do we place these artificial pressures on them? Saying behind gives them a label. We don't want to do that. We want to remove all timelines and labels and instead focus on mastery and momentum. If my kid wants to get really involved into coding or really involved in math, we're going to dive in head first. And we're going to learn everything about that because we're into it. And their efficiency in learning is incredible. They retain so much more when they do this. So while your kid might be behind, quote unquote, other kids at that grade level, I'll bet you they accelerate many grade levels ahead of anyone in that class in other areas, because we're following our interest and because we're pouring gasoline on a fire when they're interested and they choose to learn it. And you just dive in, go for mastery, and continue that momentum. One question leads to two. And just follow it. And it's a lot of fun. You get to do this with them. Moving on. The myth of motivation. Kids aren't lazy. They're just misaligned. I think boredom is a signal. It's a signal for you as the leader that you need to upgrade your system. Intrinsic motivation is built by removing obstacles, not forcing effort. You are going to allow them to grow at their own pace. If they get bored, good. That leads to curiosity, leads to looking around. Again, I restrict some things in my house. I don't allow them to get on electronics all day long, at least not on most days. Like one day a week, I allow them to wake up and play video games if they want. That's it. We restrict video games a good portion of the week. We allow them to, I think it's like two or three nights a week we don't do video games. Rest of the evenings and the afternoon after they shower and everything, they're fine. But what that does is all of a sudden, we even restrict screens until the early afternoon because we want creative play in the morning. But this restriction leads to boredom, and they start getting involved in things that they might not necessarily have explored otherwise. That boredom is a superpower. It creates intrinsic motivation. They're going to find things that they're interested in, and they want to learn more. My children, who would do anything to play a video game at any point in the day, will actually look forward to things that aren't video games if those aren't an option. That's good. That's upgrading our system, right? We want to remove the obstacles, making it a system, and I'm systematically removing video games as an option, and all of a sudden it opens space for other things. We're not going to sit there and say, you're going to do this right now, and da-da-da-da, we're not going to force them like that. We're just going to remove these obstacles to allow them to learn in an effective and efficient way. Maybe make quiet time. Maybe make a time just for learning apps. Maybe make a time just for reading. Maybe make a time just for playing around outside. Something like that, and just make it a system. That's one of the things that we like to do. All right, so next I want to talk about essentially reinventing the system. This isn't a rebellion, it's a reinvention, okay? We're not rebelling against school. We're not running from school, although school has a lot of things to run from. We're reinventing education in our house. You're not fighting the school system, you're just replacing it. You're completely axing it out and putting in your own system. This is how legacies are built. This is how the world changes. By refusing to outsource the most important things in your life, raising your kids, you are going to help them excel. I think that if you're able to get rid of some of the things that you think you have to have in your home education, like a curriculum, start just documenting learning instead and see what your child does. Then you've gone over and retrospectively created a curriculum. And I think if you wrote that on paper beforehand, you would have been pretty pleased. My kid learned how to code. My kid learned advanced math. My kid learned how to read at a 3 higher grade levels than than they should be. Again, it's not ahead or behind, but like, man, celebrate some of those wins. That when you go over and say, my kid learned this. If I could go over and write this down and have my kid do this, would I be happy? Yeah, you probably would be. When they go over and they learn how to do something super creative that they know they created without being coerced into it, I think there's some real value in that. And again, that starts not by running from school and just rejecting everything. It starts with just reinventing how education looks like in your house. Start with curiosity. And just see where it goes. And I do want to say, for those of you who are going to pull your kid out of school and try this unschooling thing, right? There is a period of time called deschooling, where the child completely rejects any kind of education and only goes towards things that are pleasurable. Like learning's bad. I can't stand reading. I hate math. Those types of sentences come out of their mouth. Unfortunately, those are wounds that don't heal as easily, but they can be overcome. Okay? But it might take time. So the rule of thumb is, for every 1 year of school, you're going to need at least 1 month to deschool before they might actually, and this is just a rule of thumb, before they may actually start getting interested in learning. Again, children are curiosity machines. That's what they do. They want to learn about the world. They're designed to ask questions. This is the human brain growing. They're little humans, and it's so funny that we think we need to send them through a curriculum to have them grow up, and it's like, no, you just need to allow them to explore their environment and ask the right questions and learn. And they're going to do it on their own as long as they have a leader in their house who's willing to hold their hand and walk with them and kind of point them in the right direction. I really don't think it's that hard, and I think we can do it with unschooling with less effort, energy, and time. Lastly, I want to talk about don't wait for a sign. Okay? Start now. Start rough. Be the standard. Just start either way. Most parents wait too long because they're looking for permission. That's not you. You're a leader. You're a leader of your household. You got one shot at this. Your child's education is too important. This is the trajectory of their life, at least in the beginning. You can come up with a really bad education and still be successful, okay? I fully agree with that statement. However, I think you're much more likely to be successful if you had someone who invested in you, who pointed you in the right direction, who shortcutted some of the learning, so that way you didn't have to figure it all out on your own. You have plenty of times to figure stuff out on your own. Life is not solved by a good home education, but at least sets your child up for success. So in conclusion, you don't need approval to opt out. You're not looking for that. You're looking at your child and doing what's right for them. You're a leader. You need a strategy to opt into, and that can be the unschooling philosophy. It's what we do. And you can opt into the life you actually want your kids to live. You could do this yourself. Unschooling isn't chaos. It's customized leadership, and you were built for this. So with that, I'll end today's episode. So stay curious, stay unschooled, and stay away from the algebra nightmares. I'll catch you in the next episode. So here's where we roll up our sleeves and bring out the big guns. If you support our mission, then please leave a review. On Unschooled Unleashed, we are talking about using a radical approach to education in today's world, and the more 5-star reviews we have, the more people will feel comfortable with the ideas, strategies, and principles we discuss. It gives legitimacy to our message, and the podcast's algorithm prioritizes us so we can reach more people. You may even have your 5-star review read on our podcast. Before I let you go, I have to pause and say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Your presence here is the fuel that ignites this movement. I am incredibly moved that you trust in us enough to click play. You, my friends, are the caped heroes in this story, the guardians of your family's learning journey, and a beacon of hope for your community. Be bold. Do what you think is best for you and your family. Thanks again for tuning in and taking this courageous leap outside of the box for this educational revolution. Welcome to the front line.